Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out AzireVPN to see if it's a VPN worth using in 2023 and how it rates on the VPN tier list system. Now, I'm not sponsored by AzireVPN or any VPN, so these reviews are always objective. We're going to be checking it out, so let's go ahead and just get right into it. Hey guys, if you like what I do here on the channel by reviewing VPNs as objectively as possible without any need for VPN sponsorships, consider supporting the channel by checking out Secret Labs. My favorite thing about the chair is the backrest, but it also has other cool features like a super comfortable pillow, adjustable lumbar support that's super fun to control. Not only that, but the pieces and individual parts are very high quality. I bought this chair with my own money, and since then I've been using it in every single video. I think it's an amazing company that makes really good chairs, and if you click on the link in the description down below, you should be able to get the best current deal going on with Secret Labs. And not only that, it'll also help support the channel. If you guys do decide to get a Secret Labs chair, come over to my Discord, which you will also find in the description down below. Post a picture of your setup and your cool chair, and I'll be sure to give you my thoughts and opinions on it. Anyways guys, back to the video. Alright guys, so AzireVPN is interesting because it's definitely one of those smaller VPN providers that you don't see talked about too often. Occasionally you hear it mentioned in small little corners saying it's a VPN that does value privacy, which is kind of funny because they all should value privacy, and they do kind of vary in how much they vary privacy, taking things like trackers on the website, trackers on the application, some small forms of logs and stuff like that, which make it skeptical for some people to even use VPNs in the first place. AzireVPN, unlike some other VPNs, I would say something like OVPN specifically, it's probably most similar to, kind of have a smaller model and kind of focus in on what matters, and that is admirable. But can it really compete with some other services that have a little bit of a more of a broader net of appeal with certain feature sets? That's what we're going to be examining in this video, and you'll see what I mean when you see that this is definitely kind of a smaller niche product, which can be useful for some people, but it does kind of have some wider compatibility than I initially thought. So guys, anyways, this is what AzireVPN looks like right off on the bat. You'll see that it's trying to differentiate itself from some other VPNs, namely stuff like NordVPN and ExpressVPN. It's interesting to see that they have something like Mulvad here comparing to AzireVPN, because like I said in the beginning, this is kind of one of those VPNs it's competing with. AzireVPN, I wouldn't even really say it competes with Nord and Express because it's such a different product even in how the company itself is run. And it does kind of compete with Mulvad though, but it says that it does beat out Mulvad is because it has more of its own dedicated servers and no physical storage on its servers. So that is an interesting take, although the other aspects Mulvad does compete pretty well. That said, AzireVPN is cheaper long term, which it does make a note of here. One thing I do kind of want to point out here that I do find funny on some of these websites like Azure is that it's a VPN not promoted at all on any of these review sites, and yet it still thinks it deserves credibility to these websites by giving little quotes that they've said. I don't really know why AzireVPN does this or any other VPN that values credibility in the VPN review space, seeing how VPN Mentor is a website owned by Cape, which owns Express and other VPNs directly competing with AzireVPN. So by putting a quote here on the website, they're directly giving them credibility when in fact I don't think they should do that. If they watch this review and like what I have to say, maybe they should put a quote here from me instead. That would be interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But if we take a look at AzireVPN's pricing, it's not too bad. It does some things okay. The unfortunate thing is it can be a little bit tricky to see the pricing as you said, so you do kind of have to scroll down here. It's a little bit of a weird website design. That said, like I said, they do kind of miss things slightly. It's because of the euros conversion. So yeah, it could be just a tiny bit cheaper, but honestly it's not a bad price VPN. Probably the biggest cons with the pricing are that you only get 5 simultaneous devices and there's only a 7-day money back guarantee, which is actually kind of low. The good thing about Azure is they do offer promo codes, although I don't have one for you guys in this video. I haven't really talked to them, or they haven't really offered one to me or anything like that. And they don't really use any deceptive marketing tactics either. So overall, that's my thoughts about pricing. It's not bad actually. I like how it's not trying to grab your money and stuff like that with price increases and stuff like that. But it could be a tiny bit cheaper. Overall, no, not any huge complaints. Probably just the biggest thing, like I said, kind of a small refund policy and small simultaneous device connections. Now, we're probably going to get into the section here where Azure VPN does the worst, and that's because, I mean, this is the application, guys. Look at this. So this is what it looks like. There's no auto connect or find your location kind of connect feature. You just connect. It connects. There's not really any indication of when it exactly is connected, besides just it's showing some data. It connects pretty fast, and I believe it is using WireGuard, which is good because in the past it didn't. But yeah, that's it. So there's really no settings, and that's the only VPN I do believe that has no settings. They really went too far with the simplicity, I think. You know, some people might like this. There's a guy in my Discord who's been shilling Azure, trying to get me to review it all the time. And he's like, oh yeah, I like how it's simple, you know. But simplicity comes at a cost here, right? And we don't see things like split tunneling, which can be very useful. We don't see some compatibility of Fire Stick support for Amazon Fire Stick users. There's no browser extensions. There's no ad blocking built into this, I don't think. I didn't find anything about it. It doesn't have any stealth VPN or anti-VPN technologies built in. I couldn't find a Linux GUI. There's no controlling the DNS, especially when it comes to ad blocking, like I said. Has no dedicated IPs. It's not open source either, so even though it is so simple, it's not open source, which would be a cool thing for them to do. And there's no like remote VPN capability. We could kind of set it as your local area network like some VPNs do nowadays. So they're definitely limited in like pretty much everything a VPN app can do that makes it useful, especially things like kill switches and whatnot. It could have something built in like that, but again, customization is always good. So it's really lacking out on some of those things. Interestingly enough, though, it does seem to have port forwarding capabilities and /side proxy support. So it's not a bad VPN for torrenting, at least, if you don't need some of those fail safes like kill switches and split tunneling and stuff like that. So that's interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look now into the next section, which would be a speed test. And overall, Azure VPN does have a smaller network. It's not huge. It's only like 25 locations or something like that with servers in there. So it's definitely one of those smaller VPNs. And we're going to kind of see that reflected in the speeds. Now, I usually like to get around, I don't know, 700 to 800, which would be a fast VPN. And this is going to be roughly half that. So I'm going to give them roughly half the points. It's not horrible speeds. Honestly, I still could get good performance here, but it's not going to be comparable to some other VPNs, especially with those limited server locations. The good news is they claim to own all their servers and stuff like that. So there is some kind of privacy benefit if that's worth the trade-off to you. And that's a good way to go into our next section, which would be the privacy audit. Now, if we take a look at Azure VPN's website, I do believe that is the right URL, and we can look at the application here in Exodus Privacy. We could see, what's going on with them as a, backend privacy. How do they do? And actually, really well. In fact, they almost got a perfect performance here. They're just missing a couple things. Namely, something like 2FA on their account creation page. I don't know why they don't have that in their account panel. Almost every VPN does. So that's kind of a weird thing to miss out on. And they don't have a third-party audit, which gives more transparency to users to know what's going on and that things are secure and there's no logs happening. But that said, other than that, they do perfectly, which is really nice to see. We see no trackers on the website, no cookies, no Facebook or Google Analytics or anything like that. When compared to other big name VPNs, this is not the same story. So you could tell that Azure VPN does care about privacy, which is good for VPN. Additionally, they have an exceedingly low permission count of only 4 permissions, which is incredibly low, and no trackers on the application. So yeah, pretty good for Azure VPN. Like I said, I don't think they're perfect. They need that audit and 2-factor authentication. With those two things, they would be perfect. I don't think they have sold the team or anything like that. They could be a little bit more transparent, but honestly, I've never heard that many scandals about the company, so it seems okay. But I would like a little bit more transparency into who's behind the product, what's going on behind the scenes, roadmaps, things like that would be nice, because I just don't really hear too much about it or know really what they're doing. So that would provide more confidence as a reviewer and for you guys as a customer. The funny thing about the customer support, I'll show you that right now. So I decided to email them and kind of test out the support and see if I got anything wrong in the review. I like to do this sometimes with VPNs. And they responded within I do believe it was 9 minutes, which is pretty good. but they didn't really seem to understand my email, and they just gave me a really short response. So I don't know how much quality you could depend on for the responses, but they do respond pretty good, and they responded pretty fast. So I'm going to give them points. Lastly, one of the things that did surprise me about AzireVPN is it does seem to work with streaming services. This is pretty surprising, and I didn't expect it at all, especially since some other competitors out there in the same kind of niche, I would say something like OVPN and Molvad, don't work with streaming compatibility at all. That said, I do think that some other VPNs kind of might provide a overall better package in terms of, you know, what you are getting. If you're looking at something like AzireVPN and considering something like Proton, well, Proton is going to be pretty same in the pricing model. They're going to have a much better application though, and they're going to have open source and an audit and better speeds and stream compatibility too. So, you know, in some ways there are other products that are just simply better in my opinion. And then we have other things that rate a little higher on the tier list as well. So if you guys are looking for those products, check them out on vpntierlist.com. I do think AzireVPN does have some promise here, but I just think they've gone too simple in their model, especially the application. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on this one, and I'll see you again in the next review very soon.